it? Or once you break into groups, nobody's going to be able to hear anything. All right. I guess if it's all right with everybody, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank everyone for coming out tonight for this strategic planning session. This is actually our second session. We had one about, what, 3 or 4 months ago? And we got some initial feedback, and I think we're going to go over a little bit different topics tonight. Again, I want to thank Mr. Skipper for coming out. I think last time we did more on capital improvement. This time we're going to go to kind of some issues we're looking at going forward. I think cybersecurity is one of them, some other issues. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Skipper unless if anybody has any questions or anything before we get started. No? All right, I'll turn it over to Mr. Skipper then.
Thank you, Mayor. Good to see you all again. It was back in September that we were here last for the strategic planning effort. Of course, Mary is back more often than that. You all know Mary Turner. We'll introduce herself a little bit more here in a bit. But a quick look at the agenda. The last meeting we were together, we focused a lot on the capital improvements that you want to make across the county. We took good notes that day. We took it back to the office. We've mapped it all up. We're in the process of analyzing that now for you. And you're going to get a product out of that process. Today, what we're going to do is zoom out a little bit more and talk about big picture and other things that you want to accomplish as a county government for your residents and businesses in the next couple of years. We're really focused on the short term, but what are the other things that you want to focus on as a leadership group at the county level for the next couple of years? So we have a few exercises, just like we did last time, try to get you up and moving around and talking with each other so that we can have a good understanding of what it is you want to focus on together so that we can get you a strategic plan that is meaningful, that guides your work for the next 2 to 5 years. Look at the agenda. I think maybe before we get into the activities, would it be worth a quick break for the sandwiches? All right, let's do that. What do we have on the menu, Jessica? And in the true spirit of regionalism, the order originally went to Gallatin. So that's the reason for the delay this evening. But we figured it out. So help yourself, get a bite to eat and a drink of water, and we'll get started here in a second.
It was turned off though.
As we get settled in here, I just want to say how much I commend you for going through this effort. Mayor, want to commend you and the County Commission for going through the strategic planning effort. We work across 13 counties in Middle Tennessee, and you'd be surprised to know how few of our communities have really put the time and energy into thinking about the long term, and even what they're going to be working on together for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So it's really a rare feat what you're doing here, and I hope folks appreciate the effort you're putting into this to really align county government services and everything that you do on a daily basis to manage that public trust to the vision that the community has. I do want to just remind y'all, this is we also appreciate the partnership with the USDA Rural Development Office, who contributed some funding to the effort. Primarily the work that we're doing on the capital planning efforts for you was made possible in part by a grant from USDA, which was a competitive grant that Matt Von Lunen and another staffer went after on behalf of the region a couple of years ago. And of course, the funding from the County Commission is paying for the strategic planning effort, which will encompass the capital planning work, but do appreciate the partnership at the federal level with the USDA, who does really good work across the state of Tennessee and smaller communities to help them kind of reimagine their economies, as sort of the old days of manufacturing, which is kind of reemerging in a new way, advanced manufacturing, but kind of reimagine their future with a different industrial base than maybe what got them started some decades ago. Want to do some, last time we were here, we did introductions, and get to do that again. Last time we asked you, as you introduced yourself, district that you represent, or if you're not on the commission, what your affiliation with the county government is. Last time we asked you to answer the question, if you had all the money in the world, what one thing would you improve across the county? And most of y'all did a fair job staying within the lines of the coloring book, and only gave us 3 or 4 or 5 things that you would do with all the money in the world, not just one. But I thought that was a good question to get us started as we're thinking about capital planning. Tonight, I want to, as you introduce yourself and who you represent, kind of react to this question that's on the screen here. Is when you think about Trousdale County, particularly as you're imagining what success looks like, does your mind immediately begin to reflect on past success, or does it imagine the future? And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer here. We all are different as individuals, and I think the human mind works in one of these 2 ways. I tend to fit into the category of always being ahead of myself, but I know a lot of people in my life are more people who reflect on past success and accomplishments. So I'm interested to know what kind of individual you are. Like when you think about success for the county, are you thinking of the accomplishments that you have witnessed throughout your lifetime? Are you thinking about the next chapter? Then also, what does success look like to you in the terms of a county government and the work that you're doing for your citizens? So that's the prompt for the introductions. And Mayor, since you just took a bite of your sandwich, we'll go to Mary Ann.
My name is Mary Ann Baker, and I'm one of 2 commissioners from the 10th district. And I look to the future. I think Trousdale County, we've done some great things in the past, but I think our future is a lot brighter, or looking brighter.
When you think of that future and you imagine what success looks like, is there a sort of short snippet you can share with everybody?
I would like to see more retail in Trousdale County. We've got the growth coming in, and I think we need to focus more on getting more retail businesses in Trousdale County.
Okay, thank you for that. Mayor, are you ready to go?
I'm Stephen Chambers. I'm the mayor of Hartselle-Trousdale County. To me, success, yeah, I'm still looking like Commissioner Baker, kind of looking towards the future. And what I would imagine that'd be is being able to have the proper infrastructure in place to really absorb the growth we're going to experience over the next 5-10 years. And then that's growth, not just residential, but also I think we're going to have retail growth and industrial, because we're getting interest from all kinds of different groups right now. So just really having that in place to accommodate that growth, I think would be a success.
Yeah, it's a hot market, and it makes sense that you're focused on making sure you're ready for it. We'll come back to the pews. Thank you. Thanks for being here too. Good, sir. What do you have? Job security, right? All right, thank you. Back to the head table.
My name is David Nowner. I'm with the First District Commissioner. I'm like very with retail. I mean, back in my younger days, we had several car dealerships here. We had all kind of factories for people to work at. The city was in the county where people had a lot of people come town on Saturday, or done a lot of shopping here because you had stores you could buy stuff from and all that. Don't have that anymore. Don't have the businesses or the factories, or all them got taken away from us. And so I'd like to see that come back. You get that back, then everything else kind of fall into place.
Thank you. And I'm going to come back to something you just said a minute ago, which I think makes this question really an important one for Trousdale County.
So I'm Bill Ferguson. I am a commissioner in the 8th district, and I was at the first meeting and was involved in that. And there's an old saying that says that there's a reason why the windshield's much larger than the rear view mirror. And it's because you got to look forward into the future, but you also have to remember the things from the past that will help you make better decisions in the future. And currently, as a career, I'm a realtor. And I was in Nashville today in Franklin. We had a conference, and it was speaking about the future of real estate. Of course, it really matters here in Trousdale County because we encompass that 1 hour circle of Nashville. Middle Tennessee is the 3rd hottest market in the entire nation. And so growth is going to come to Trousdale County, whether some people like it or not. And my dad, who was the mayor, once said, there's growth and then there's good growth. Not all growth is good. So you have to try your best to manage it in such a way that it benefits the people in the community that you serve as you do grow. So you have to try your best to manage the growth in certain aspects. You can't totally control it by any stretch of the imagination, but you can set in place certain things that will certainly help a community as it does grow. Because there's one thing for sure, we're changing here, and we got to do what we can to make sure that it's a positive growth as we go along.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that's a great analogy for this question, because there's no right or wrong answer, and you need a lot of forward thinking, but you also need to understand where you've been. Because a lot of times that frames people's expectations and how they define success. And I think Trousdale is really unique within Middle Tennessee because you're growth trajectory is different than everybody else's. I mean, most communities have really started to grow very rapidly in the 40s and 50s and just never stopped, right? And you've had some up and downs that others haven't experienced, which has certainly strengthened your resolve, but has given you a different starting point than a lot of communities who are thinking about their future. So I appreciate you indulging us in that question. We have a lot more to get out of you before we leave here tonight, but let us introduce our team. We'll start with Jessica Hill. She almost lost her job. She almost said her last employer, Centralina. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you, guys. I know this isn't the full commission, and I want to make sure y'all know we're going to make every effort to make sure we get out and talk to everybody. I mean, we could just take the input tonight and call it a day and let y'all make all the decisions for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You probably don't want that responsibility, do you? So even though we don't have a full house tonight, we'll make sure this is this is only successful if everybody has a say in the matter, and that at the end of this, you have a product that you feel comfortable getting behind as a full county commission, because ultimately you're going to be making some resource allocation decisions that are going to require those types of votes. So we want to make sure this process is working for everybody, and you have that commitment from us to make sure that tonight is not the only opportunity we have to shape what this thing looks like. We did talk about the process itself last time we were here. I was going to recap that a little bit, and I think it's probably important to do so, but I don't want to dwell too much here. And if you've heard it before, just tell me to move on. I don't mind that honesty. But really, when the mayor contacted us several months ago about the idea of working on a strategic plan with you, I think one of the things that was front and center in his mind was the need for a comprehensive plan for growth and development. And so that's not specifically what we're working on with the strategic plan, but the strategic plan, I think, is going to be a good way to position the county government to begin the journey of working with the broader public and the residents and the business community about what their vision for growth and development is, so that you can feel confident in the policies, regulations, and incentives that you're putting into place to help that come to fruition, because you're going to grow no matter what. You're going to grow differently than you have in the past, where you had your own market historically. Now you're part of a much larger metropolitan market. There's things that you can dictate as an individual community, but there's things that may be dictated to you if you're not out in front of some of the growth that's coming your way. And I think shaping and managing it, to your point, is really what we're after. The difference between the comprehensive growth plan that the mayor really wants to get into the work of that relatively soon. The difference between that and the strategic plan is, think of the strategic plan as sort of the business plan for the county commission. So you have responsibility, you have a really important role, you allocate resources. And so what guiding document are you going to go off of as you're thinking about the budgeting process, right? So one of the things you might want to fund is the development of a comp plan. But there are other things you're going to do with the resources of county government. This is going to be a plan that represents the priorities that you have for the next 2 to 5 years as a leadership group that will be communicated to your constituents and stakeholders across the county. But it's really a document for you, just to sort of get on the same page with each other as it relates to the governance of the county government. So tonight's conversation, again, we're going to go a little bit more big picture than we were last time, and just get into a conversation about all the things that you might want to get started on over the next couple of years. And then, I think last but not least, one of the things that was important to the mayor, probably at the top of this list, is making sure that these planning efforts are more than just creating documents that sit on your shelf, but they're mobilizing resources of others. So state and federal grants that are out there going to other communities, making sure you're positioning yourself for success and drawing down some of that money that helps you move forward a lot more quickly on the capital projects or the other programs that you want to get in place for your constituency. So the outcomes of this will be a strategic planning document with recommendations, specific actions, goals and responsibilities. Some of those will be internal to county government, but there may be some responsibilities of partner organizations and agencies that are reflected in the plan. Embedded in that will be a capital improvements plan with prioritized projects, cost estimates, and funding opportunities to get those things done. And then along the way, technical reports that help you better understand conditions and trends and sort of what's coming down the pike. So we'd like to keep a lot of that analysis separate so it doesn't muddy the message that we're trying to communicate through the actual strategic planning document itself. So those are some of the outcomes. And then the process itself, a lot of this work started some months ago, but analyzing the conditions and trends for growth and development, infrastructure capacity, infrastructure quality, demographic shifts, the shift in your economy. So our staff is analyzing all that stuff so we can tell a really good, provide a really good narrative about the trajectory of the county that you're planning for. The process includes outreach, envisioning with county leadership. So beyond the work sessions that we have with you, I think we've pretty much met one-on-one with every county commissioner, or getting close. No, not all the way there yet. Okay. But the one-on-one meetings are really important for us to just spend some time with you as an individual, understand what sort of got you into the leadership role. What were you trying to get accomplished as an individual, so we can understand how you fit within the broad scheme of things. We'll begin tonight working on identifying some core objectives, things that you want to accomplish in the short term, and then ultimately end up with the document laying out some strategic commitments of county government and the priority actions that you want to begin to implement over the next couple of years. That'll provide guidance for resource allocation, because some of these things will either cost money or staff time to get done, or partnerships that you need to create. And then some guidance for implementation, tracking progress, and then some guidance on how often you need to revisit your strategic plan to make sure it stays aligned with your vision as a community leader. So quick recap before we get into the first exercise. So I think most of y'all were here for the September meeting, but we did a couple of breakouts. We got around maps and we looked at different features of the county. We looked at assets, we looked at some liabilities, but we also had a conversation of what your aspirations are for the community as a leader. And the list ended up being much longer than what you see on the screen, but I thought these were the ones that were probably the ones that had the most consensus about them from the group as a whole. So from an aspirations standpoint, we heard very clearly that y'all want the county to be self-sustaining, right? You're part of a larger metropolitan area, but you want to be able to sort of be fiscally independent from the rest of the region and have retail opportunities that otherwise you're leaving Hartsville for today. You want to manage the growth. You want increased industry and employment. You want to remain a safe and clean place to live. You want financial security, and you want an efficient government. So those were the things that you were aspiring to last time we spoke with each other. As far as strengths and the sort of the community assets to help you move into the future, you identified the people of the county being a strength, the everyday resident, a strength, the leader in the community, a strength. You feel like there's a supportive community out there, people that are ready to get behind you on major initiatives to take the county into the future. You see the river as a strength, the proximity to Nashville as a strength, the cost of living and the scenic beauty of the landscape, all are strengths of the county. So the things that you have in your bag to give you the confidence to move forward with anything you might set your mind to. Of assets, and primarily the conversation about assets is focused on physical assets in the community that you saw as a strength, county roads, the hospital, the quality of education, the affordable workforce, meaning just the ability to hire folks locally. The industrial park was seen as a community asset, and the emergency management services was seen as an asset. In terms of needs, easily identifiable needs for the community, water and wastewater expansion, better school facilities. So whereas education, whether we're talking about K through 12 or the TCAP facility, while that was an asset, the actual facilities themselves maybe are standing to be improved. More resources for fire service, something most of y'all agreed to. Improved communication systems, you know, we all get to experience that as we're driving into the community and the cell phone cuts out for a little bit there, right? So that's a lot of what you talked about last time. More retail opportunities and more recreational opportunities. We're all seen as needs as expressed by the leadership that was in the room with us that day. So that's just a recap of what we heard. Seeing that on the screen again, does that still sort of jive with either what you remember or what you believe in terms of aspirations, strengths, assets, and needs? Sound about right? Now, these lists are much longer. When you get written report, you'll see those lists, but I think these were the ones that rose to the top. Wouldn't you agree, Jessica? All right, so let's get into the first exercise of the evening, which is really focused on trying to anticipate where change is going to happen across the county. And we're going to break out into two groups here momentarily. But just as a reminder, you know, change has already been happening across the county. 60% population growth over the last 20 years. But honestly, it's just since 2010, almost 50% growth. So most of that growth is just in the last 10 years, right? 2000 and 2010, that time period, you really only saw a few hundred people increase in your population. But since 2010, you've gone from about 7,800 folks to almost 12,000 folks in 2020. We're higher than that number now because this is almost 2 years old, right? So it's already been a lot of change. We look at where people are living across the county, that's changing, right? So this is the census blocks by density of people. You see Hartsville sort of shown up on that map pretty clearly. That's 2000. This is 2010, and this is 2020. So you can see that growth following the transportation corridor to the west, and the sort of a physical manifestation of the connection that you have with the rest of the region just popping up on the map there. We've seen changes across the landscape. So as that growth has occurred, about 161 football fields per year gained an impervious surface. So that's pavement, asphalt being added to the environment. And we've seen about 715 football fields lost of tree canopy over that period of time as well. So things to consider as change is occurring. Some things are very positive, but some things need to be mitigated in order to protect the things that you really care about locally. This is a look at where impervious surface has been gained over that period of time, and a look at where the tree canopy has been lost over that period of time. But also looking forward, one of the things that we bring to the table as your partner on this effort is we essentially house all the growth modeling for Middle Tennessee. So we're predicting population and jobs into the future. We're also predicting where people are going to live and work at the individual parcel level. Then we can translate that into impact on the transportation system or other aspects of your infrastructure. And so it allows you to get a sneak preview of the future, figure out what problems you're going to need to solve, you know, before you get there. So that's part of what our modeling does. And this is a look at where you're expected to grow over the next couple of decades. So we've already mentioned that change is inevitable, but how do we ensure that the inevitability of change is used to improve the community, right? It's something that you're dictating and you're using change, you're leveraging it as a tool to accomplish the improvements in the community that you want. Change is necessary for those improvements to happen. But if you're too passive, you sit back and watch the change happen, it's more likely it's not going to solve your problems. It's not going to be a tool. It's going to end up being a problem itself. And so I'm a spatial person. I think when you do planning, you really need to understand location. And so what we want you to do is break into two groups and help us understand where you as a group, as an individual negotiating with your group, are going to be anticipating change across the county in the coming decades. And the exercise is fairly straightforward. We're going to have colors that we're going to want you to map, and we're going to want you to pretty much color the entire county, all right? You're going to color it green for areas that you expect or desire to remain relatively unchanged. So not everything's going to change, right? So what are the areas that you expect or desire to remain unchanged? You're going to use blue for areas that have matured. Usually, the downtown core, maybe that's matured, but you need continued targeted investment to make sure you maintain a quality of life in those areas, right? So it's not turning your back on those parts of the county because you've arrived at your destination. There's some maturity there, but you need to continue to focus targeted investments to make sure you maintain. And then the last color, I think that's orange, are the areas that you expect or desire to see rapid change. So we call that the accelerate category there. So pretty straightforward. It sounds easier than it probably is once you start getting to it, but we've got some really good folks who are going to walk you through that process. Any questions about this? Sound like fun? Sound like what you signed up for tonight? I signed up to be here for the sandwich. I didn't know I was going to have to color a map. All right, well, let's go ahead and break out, and then we'll come back together as a group, and then there's just two more quick exercises that are a little bit more conversational in nature, and then we'll get you on your way. Anybody want to propose you just part the Red Sea down the middle here, or you want to odd even, just part it down the middle? All right. Natural selection.